Inside your bedroom, we stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm.
Hi, hello. My name is Amy Prokopis. I am a fantasy romance author. Welcome to my channel. I have talked about similar things to this subject before, but I don't think I've ever fully gone into how I go about planning my entire 1-year publication timeline of all the books I'm going to publish, how I'm going to do it, the steps. I don't think I've fully talked about how I go through that process. And so that is what we are going to do today. Before we get into that, I do want to shameless plug. I do have a document with all and more of this information in it. It is listed on my Patreon, so you can get it for free if you are a Patreon member, or if you join for just $5 a month, or for $3 if you are not a Patreon member. You can purchase the entire guide. It is 30 something pages. I don't know. 30 something pages, $3 on Patreon, and you can get access to this entire document. So more than just information, it has worksheets, places for you to write in all of the information I am about to tell you a little bit about. And it's just a way you can keep it organized so that you don't have to create your own notes based on this video. So check that out. Link is in the description, along with my social media and all of my fantasy romance books. So that is all there if you would like to check it out. Now, let's get into why you clicked on this video, which is how I go about putting together a full year in advance, my publication timeline. First and foremost, before I've ever created a publishing timeline, I have, of course, set up my business, set up my author LLC, decided what kind of books I want to publish. I've already established things like my website, a newsletter, things in the background that you need just from a business perspective to get started. That all has been done. So I would say that is the groundwork. That is building the ground level. And now we're moving on to ground two, the second floor. We're building the second floor now. So if you are absolutely just getting started, I do have a separate video all about kind of getting started as an indie author. I could go more in depth even than I do in that video, and I may do that. But if you need a little bit more of a basis for the things that we're going to build on in this video, maybe go and watch that one first. I will also have that included in this video somewhere, maybe up here in the cards somewhere, so that you can go and find that video on my channel. After you have already kind of created your business, your starting point for becoming an author, the next thing you need to do is decide what those goals are. So I use SMART goals. SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So those 5 things, the reason why I use SMART is because each of those things are areas that I need to have wrapped my head around related to my goal in order for it to be, one, attainable. That is A anyway, but that way I have my head wrapped around how quickly I'm going to do the goal. Is it attainable? What steps do I need to put in place? What are some roadblocks that will most definitely and maybe get in my way to achieving my goal? So I always create publishing SMART goals. So that can be as simple as, like, one of mine for 2025 is publish 3 books. If you've been following me for a while, you already know what those 3 books are, but that is one of my publishing goals for this year, and I am using the SMART system to line out if it is feasible for me and how I will go about that. So I've already filled in those SMART goals for that particular goal. You can have as many as you want. I have a few for 2025 related to my business, but when you are creating your plan for your 1-year publishing timeline, figuring out the next year and what book or books you're planning to publish, I think it's super important to sit down and do a bit of goal setting, because you need to think big picture. What are the big goals for me as an author? What are the goals for like 5 years as an author? What are some things I would like to do eventually that are not super big dreams far off? So we're not talking like have your book made into a movie. We're talking like maybe hit a bestseller rank on Amazon. And then what are some goals that are feasible for right now, this year, that you think you could do by the end of the year? And those are the goals that I think you should be including in planning out in your publication timeline for the year. So think about that. Think about those publishing goals, and I would put them down on a piece of paper. You don't have to use the SMART system like I do, but I do provide a worksheet in this guide so that you can go through and answer those questions on a worksheet using the SMART method and do a bit of goal setting for the next year. Next, I would think about your marketing plan. I know it's probably silly because we haven't even talked about the book part yet, the actual thing that makes you an author, and that is basically this entire business. But it is super important to think ahead, I believe, about marketing. If you have been on TikTok, online, on Instagram, on anything at all, you've probably seen, if you're in the author space, some of those reels. It goes something along the lines of taking a whole year, writing a book, editing a book, getting the cover done, publishing the book, getting reviews, and then realizing you have to market the book for the rest of your life. And they're not wrong. So that is the part where people fall into pitfalls, and it can hugely hinder your progress if you're not anticipating doing something. So I would say sit down when you're doing your 1-year plan for your publishing goal for this next year. Think about how you want to go about marketing your book. One of the biggest things I would consider, one of those big questions, is how much can you afford to do for marketing? So are you going to do paid ads? Are you not going to put money into it at all? Because you can also do a ton of free marketing. And that is what a lot of my business hinges on, is free marketing. I do paid ads. I don't do them very often, and I don't do them consistently. So they're not my main source of marketing. You need to sit down though and decide what is affordable, what can I afford, and what benefits me and my platform, and also where are all of your readers located? Because that's a huge part of marketing. How are you going to get that information to them? If your primary audience is younger, then you're looking at younger, trendier social media apps, maybe things like TikTok for young adult, or TikTok if you are maybe writing a spicy book, because that seems to be a big hub over there on TikTok as well. So think about where your audience is located, and also think about how they're consuming their content and how they're consuming their books, because that can change some decisions on how you write your book and also what formats and where you post them as well. In this guide, there are a couple pages of marketing ideas. They're taken from my own specific marketing brain dump spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet. I drop ideas in it as I see them online, and I've divided them up based on paid and free. And so you could do things like a giveaway. And if you want to do a free giveaway, you could give away an ebook. That is extremely cheap. All you have to do is either send it via email or upload it to BookFunnel and send it to BookFunnel. To do that via BookFunnel, there may be a fee to have that particular level of BookFunnel so that you can do that. So there may be that subscription involved. So maybe not so free, but you could make it free. You can also do a group giveaway. Those I really enjoy. You can get with a bunch of your author friends, author buddies. You can all share the graphic. Hey, we're doing a giveaway. Here's how to enter, with your own individual communities. And that expands your reach to other people's communities and people who may also enjoy your book. And it gets you out that much further. Of course, you can do Amazon ads. You can do a Facebook ad. What I do when I pay for marketing is typically using the promote feature on Instagram and TikTok. I haven't had as much luck on TikTok, so I don't do it often there. But on Instagram, I have had luck by promoting my posts that are performing well and turning them into advertisements to feed out based on certain parameters. So when you do that, you can make it real easy and say, give it to people similar to those that are already connected with my account, or you can go in and target it super specifically if you really, really want to. And that is an option you have. You can spend as little as $5 or you can spend as much as a couple hundred. There are also ad stacks that you can do, which are these different, usually newsletters online, like Fussy Librarian. You can pay to have your book featured in their newsletter for that month or whenever that particular newsletter gets pushed out. It goes out to so many thousands of people. Usually those are for discounted books, so you need to be running a price promotion, usually to have your book featured. However, there are other similar newsletter things you could do, like finding some authors and you could swap. So I promote your book in my newsletter and you promote mine, and that gets the book out to people that maybe have never seen it before. There are some other options in there, and I do in this guide that's linked below give several of those different options. But honestly, if you scroll with it, put your author hat on, and if you scroll TikTok, scroll Instagram, any kind of social media, especially the platform that is most connected with your ideal reader, you will probably see something that you can create, put your own spin on it, or add to your author toolkit that you can use for marketing as well. You just have to be thinking about it to notice it. Now we're going to get into the bookish stuff. So speaking of marketing, in this guide, I have my publishing to-dos. I am actually going to read out a lot of those to you so that you can take notes if you'd like to, but I do have a nice worksheet and checklist if you would like to check that out. In this guide, it has all of my publishing to-dos that I currently use. And because I said speaking of marketing, what I mean is that there is some marketing built in to this publishing to-do sheet that is super easy to do. And if you do nothing at all but those, even that is a huge step up on putting a lot of money and effort into marketing. So if marketing right now, if you're a little baby author like I was when I first started, and the idea of marketing your book and everything I just talked about sounds super, super scary, if you follow these simple things in here, you're already working at marketing your book. All you need is a email newsletter and some kind of social media. So let's get into the publishing to-dos. First and foremost, you have to write your book. That is the very first thing on my publishing to-do list. Of course, there's some other steps involved in writing a book, but those are for a different video, a different time. This is for the actual publication process. So write draft one, check. Number one. Then we're going to do a title reveal. I have 2 boxes for that. Title reveal on your newsletter, send it out to the people who subscribe to your newsletter, then release the title on social media. You can do this in a few ways. I've seen some really fun title reveal games for marketing ideas that you could recreate as well. I have actually done one before and it was super, super fun to do, kind of like a, I don't even know what you call, but sort of like it's not Jeopardy. Is it Jeopardy? I don't remember, but you can gamify it, and it's really fun for people who are following along for you, people who like puzzles, to guess what your title may be. So title reveal, then I do the ebook pre-order. I do not do a paperback pre-order. That is just something that I personally don't do. Usually on places like Ingram Spark, where I publish my book, Ingram Spark and KDP, in order to have a paperback pre-order, you can't do it on KDP at all right now. You can do it on Ingram Spark. However, once you set that up, if you don't go in with it, like, you have to go pretty far in advance, because Ingram Spark starts to print books pretty further out than you'd think from your publication date. And so you really need to have like a month where you've already finished the book, it's completely done, and then a month out, you go in and make sure the upload is the correct file. And that's all fine and dandy if you would like to do a paperback pre-order. I have done one in the past. However, there is a fee on Ingram Spark to go in and revise your files. And so it will cost you to update that. And so you need to consider whether or not it's going to be worth it to run a pre-order. For instance, if you do a paperback pre-order and only a handful of people pre-order the book, you are going to be paying that same amount for the updated file that those people have paid for the pre-order. So you're going to even out and you're not actually going to get ahead monetarily. So you may need to consider whether or not that is something you want to do. I don't. So I just stick with the ebook pre-order. I set that up in KDP. I hit go. So as soon as I've revealed the title, hey, hello, this book's coming out. Here's the date it's coming out. Go pre-order it now. People have somewhere to go and go ahead and order it if they're interested so that they don't forget about it while you're working on the rest of the publication process. Next, you're going to read through your rough draft. I always like to let my rough draft sit. If I have enough time, I really like to let the draft sit for an entire month and then I come back to it, read it with fresh eyes. I try to read it quick so that I get the entire book and kind of mimic a reader's experience. I may make notes as I go, but I try to read it in as close to one sitting as possible just to get the full experience of it. And I'm more likely to catch things that way, especially continuity issues. So I read through it, I make my notes, and then I go in and I self-edit. And then I usually have somebody else help me out. I usually have beta readers come in and read it after I have done a round of editing. And then I take their suggestions, I go back through, I edit again, and then it goes off to a professional editor. If you are really tight financially and you don't have a ton of money to spend, put your money into your cover and your editor. I am telling you, you will not regret that, but you will regret having to revise your book because people keep telling you there are typos or issues with it. That will add up fast. And you will regret not having a really pretty cover and not getting people to pick it up off the shelf because it's not eye-catching and it doesn't match everything else on a bookshelf and not getting those sales. So that is where I would put your money, if anything. So professional editing, that's where I am next. Then I fill out this document that I call Pitch My Project. I have, of course, included the entire Pitch My Project document inside of this guide. In Pitch My Project, you have a summary where you're going to write your summary for your book. This is kind of intended for you to be, it's loose, it's a rough draft. So just write your summary the best you can. Don't worry about how long it gets. It can be 2-3 pages. That's okay. You're going to work with that. That's somewhere to start. Write the summary. And then there's a blurb builder. So that has questions to ask and answer so that you can build a better blurb. It's what I use to build my blurb. It's how I start. And then I tweak it from there. So it's a place to start. It's something to consider in creating an eye-catching blurb and take that summary, which is so hard to write already, and put it in an itty-bitty paragraph. And I know taking your book, this thing you've worked so hard on, took so long to write, and to sum it up in like 2 paragraphs is extremely difficult. And that's why I've developed Pitch My Project. It's to pitch your project effectively to new readers. So you're going to write the blurb. There's a place to edit and format that, create a short blurb and a tagline. Creating a tagline, you want to embody basically the vibes of the book is the way that I put it. But ultimately, things your tagline should tell people is the theme and a little bit about what this book is about. So somebody should be able to read your tagline and go, this is a mystery, or this is going to be a romance. They should be able to get a feeling from your tagline about what that book is about. So creating a good tagline, and then you're going to decide what other authors are similar to your platform as an author. What other books are similar to this particular book, list those, and what your ideal reader looks like. So I would get more specific than you would think. So you want to know, what are those interests? What kind of books does your ideal reader enjoy? What kind of music do they listen to? What is their personal style? Are they the type of people that like really dark, gritty things? Or are they all girly girls? You want to get pretty in depth with this because it'll paint a better picture for you. And later down the road, when we come back to that marketing section that you did early on, how you're going to market your book and some of those ideas, it will give you a better idea to further flesh them out. So For instance, maybe you are somebody that was like me, and when you were looking at those marketing things like I talked about, you thought, yeah, my audience is totally on TikTok. That's where all of the young people are. That's who's always reading my books and commenting on it. I'm going to market on TikTok. Well, now you have this perfect ideal image of who that reader is, and you know that they like pink and sunflowers and girly stuff and Taylor Swift. And so now you're going to go over to TikTok, and because that is the kind of person that you think would read this book, you're going to create your graphic. Here's what my book is about. And you're going to put a Taylor Swift song in there because you know that your ideal reader would probably enjoy that kind of content. And it just makes it that much easier for you down the road to create content to then pull readers to your book. Let's go back to that whole pitch my project document, because I know some of you are like, that's great. I can think about similar books. I can come up with similar authors and who would like this book, but how the heck do you take a 90,000 word novel and turn it into a teeny tiny blurb? What was that about? Because I did kind of gloss over that a second ago. And in this document, in the Pitch My Project section, there are 4 sections that you will fill out, and those 4 sections will become your blurb. So basically, there are 4 questions that you need to ask yourself in order to effectively hook a reader, pull them in, and tell them what this book is all about without giving away the entire plot. And of course, first, that's a hook. What is the hook of your book? Really, it should be a short paragraph. Try to keep it to 1 or 2 sentences, maybe not even a paragraph. Number 2, what is the initial conflict? What is that thing, the big issue in this book? How does that happen? What is it? Number 3, how does the character react to that? How do they react to it? Or maybe how does, not your character, but how does everybody else around your character react to that? And the last one, Number 4, this is where you're really going to leave your reader wanting more and interested to pick up the book and actually flipping through it. And that question is not really a question. It is, the problem just got worse. So you're going to leave them on a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I know that it feels a little like you're not telling anything about the story, but trust me, when you sit down to write it, you, even as you write it, are going to think, what happens next? And that is exactly what you want your reader to do, because then they are going to pick up the book. And the longer somebody engages with your content, the longer somebody looks at something. And this is sort of a business fact for you. The longer, if you can get somebody to pick something up off a shelf, tangible, if you can get it in their hands, they are more likely to purchase it. So if you can get somebody just to pick your book up off the shelf, you're more likely to get a sale from that person. So we did the whole blurb thing. We did the pitch my project thing. Next, this is another marketing thing. You are going to do a blurb reveal. So go back to your newsletter. Now, not only do you have the title of your book, but you're going to share, here's the official blurb. So now people know more about what this book's about. You're going to get them really excited to pick that book up off a shelf, and they can't yet. But you know what they can do? They can go and pre-order it because you put the ebook up for pre-order. So when you send that newsletter out or you post that blurb to social media, make sure in the caption or in your newsletter, you're going to put a little button, here's the link to pre-order. And that is going to spark people over to that page. And like I just said, if the longer you can get somebody to engage with your content, the longer they can look at your book, the more likely they are to purchase it. And if they hop over to Amazon, where your pre-order is listed on Amazon, and it's only like $2.99 or it's only $5.99, that's really not that much money. And I'm really interested to see where this goes. They're more likely to go ahead and hit pre-order. And now you already have kind of a track record of sales to launch your book on release day. So we've done all those things. Our book is now back from the professional editor that we hired. Now we're looking at final edits. So go in, you're going to review what your editor has given you, make the final edits. If you need to, You could also include at this stage a proofreader. So maybe you've done your final edits, the interior of your book and everything is finished, but I really want somebody to look over and just make sure I didn't make any funky typos. You can also include that step in here about at this time, or maybe you do it after the next step, which is interior formatting. Interior formatting is what the inside of a book actually looks like when it's published. So some of those books have fun chapter headers. That is interior formatting. It's everything from the page numbers to the chapter headers to any kind of interesting font that you may potentially use in your book. Don't use it in the body of your book though. Don't do that. But maybe it's like a letter in there or a text message that is included in the story. That is all interior formatting. There are several different softwares out there you can use. I use Vellum. I am a MacBook owner and I downloaded Vellum. I got it as a Christmas gift when I was first starting out. My mom was very, very nice and purchased it for me. So it was a one-time purchase and then you own it. So you don't have to worry about paying for interior format year after year. I already own Vellum. I just utilize it. I've already earned out what I purchased it for. So interior formatting, make your book look nice and pretty on the inside. This would be a good step to maybe include a proofreader if you wanted somebody to look over your final copy. But from here, you're going to have it looked over by ARC readers. ARC readers. I have an entire section in this document devoted to ARC readers and creating an ARC team and the questions that you should be asking. I always use a Google form for this. I create a Google form. I will link it on my social media accounts. This is something that you could also send out in that newsletter or post about on social media. I am looking for ARC readers for this book I've been talking about. Here's the blurb. You've heard the title. Do you want to read it early and give me feedback? Leave a review on release day and get the ebook for free. That would be maybe a pitch for that. You could send out a newsletter. Here's a link to the Google form to apply. You can decide how many ARC readers you want. I have done as few as like 5 and all the way up to like 100. It really depends on how many you want to engage with because you really should engage with them regularly. Usually when I start ARC reading, I pace out whatever the time is between now and release day. I split it in half and I try to talk to my ARC readers or send them something at least halfway between that if it's a short amount of time. If it's a longer amount of time, I engage with them up to even like 2 to 3 times. But just check in. How are things going? Make sure you're appreciative because these people are reading your book with their own time for free, and posting about it is another thing. Just keep in mind that these people are devoting their own free time to reading your book for free and posting about it on the internet. And also keep in mind that the reviews they're posting are their honest reviews. So just because you include somebody in your ARC team does not necessarily mean that they are going to give you a good review on release day. That is not what an ARC reader does. An ARC reader may not even tell you if there is a problem with your book. I have a couple ARC readers who are very nice, and I think it just really bugs them to see an issue. And so if they find one, they send me an email. Hey, by the way, there's a problem. Here's the page number, which I am very thankful for. But that is not something that is a part of an ARC reader's job. And so I don't ever expect it. And I definitely don't make it. I definitely do not tell them that I hope they would do that. So ARC readers, they're going to review your book on release day. There are a couple places they can go and review early. They can give you a shout out on social media. So when you're creating your Google form and going about getting ARC readers signed up and gathering a list of people to be ARC readers, think about the expectations that you have. When are they going to post and where? Amazon will only let you post a review after the book has been released. So make sure to mark your calendar on release day that you need to email your ARC readers and make sure to link the listing to Amazon so they can go and add their review on release day. Other places you can review early, like Goodreads. Social media is another one. So whenever I create a list for ARC readers, I always ask what their preferred social media handles are and what their favorite platforms are, because those are the platforms they're more likely to share and post about your book. And so I try to get kind of a mix of everything. And so that would be something to consider when you select your final ARC readers, is where they may be posting and where they're most active, and if that is where your target readership are, because it's not going to help you if you're trying to get your book out to young people and maybe a YA audience, and all of your ARC readers are saying that they will share it on Facebook. That's not going to help you. So think about that. What kind of genres do they typically like to read? It may not be super helpful if you're writing a paranormal romance book and you have an ARC reader who says that they only read Westerns or they only read science fiction. They may just not be a really good fit for your book. And depending on the other things they tell you, you might want to keep them in, because maybe they have some other background that could be useful depending on your specific book. But also, you may not want to include them simply because they may just not be your target audience, and that's also perfectly fine. So this is the stage where when you're curating your list, you can pick and choose a little bit. However, I would be very careful the different things that you ask in your Google form that ARC readers do. For instance, this is something that is free. They are not getting paid. Never pay for reviews like this. Do not offer any kind of monetary thing other than maybe sending a physical book. That will cost you if you send physical ARCs. I always do an ebook ARC and I upload it to BookFunnel and give them the BookFunnel link, because BookFunnel will stamp. There's like an invisible stamp on all of their ebooks. And so if your book does end up on a piracy site, it's really easy to figure out where it came from and maybe even who put it there. But be very, very careful to make sure and put on there that nobody is receiving payment for being an ARC reader, because when you pay for reviews, you get into a very sticky situation, because it is against Amazon's terms and conditions. And it's also just not a good look in general. Of course, there are a few exceptions like Kirkus reviews and things. So yeah, to some degree, you can pay for certain reviews and like editorial reviews, but do not pay your ARC readers. Just don't do that. Also, make sure that you've made it clear what kind of an ARC you are giving them. So if you are doing a Google form, make sure to list on there if you are doing an ebook ARC or if you are sending physical ARCs, because there are ARC readers who only read the physical books. And there are some that will take either or. So make sure that you've listed it somewhere on there, like a disclaimer. I would put it in there somewhere with the payments thing, how this is all for honest reviews. Nobody will be paid. Thank you for your service. And then include, you will get an ebook ARC through a link to BookFunnel, or if you're just sending the ebook out, and that's where the book will be coming from. Make sure that they know that. That way everybody has the same expectations. They know where you would like them to post. They know when you want them to post, and they know how they're going to get the book. That is super important. This is the stage where I usually do my own kind of proofreading. So while my ARC readers are doing that, I also download the book via the same BookFunnel link to my Kindle, and I click through it just to make sure everything looks great. There is something to be said for looking at a book on the format that a reader will as well. And so I always do that on Kindle, because Kindle looks quite different than the physical book. And so that is also a check mark on my list. I always go through and proofread it on Kindle, and I'll make changes based on what kind of feedback I get from that. And then something I like to do from there, now that the book is entirely finished, it's been formatted, the interior is done. So now I like to give people a sneak peek of the interior. So I share the first page with my newsletter, just like I did everything else. Here's the title, here's the blurb, here's the first page, here's a link where you can pre-order it, send it out. I'll do something similar on social media. Here's the first look, here's the first page. Then we're going into cover design. We've got the interior of your book done. It's all nice and finished. Now we're going to cover design. I would have been thinking about this further along as you're getting into the publication process. As you finish writing the book, I would start thinking about what you want the cover to look like. So usually by this step where I'm here to hire a cover designer, I have already thought about what I want the book to look like, and I've already hired my cover designer. If you haven't, your publication process will take longer, which is perfectly fine. But if you think ahead to book your cover designer and do some of these things at the same time, or think about them at the same time, you can speed things up. So cover design, that can cost you anywhere from $0 if you have a ton of skills and can design a professional looking cover yourself, or you can spend thousands of dollars on cover design. I would, again, just like I'd said before on marketing, consider what you can afford. Consider that professional edit, how much that costs and how much that will cost you to hire an editor. Consider how much cover design will cost you, those two things, because those are the big important ones, and put your money into those things. Once you have that cover, I would go back to put our marketing hat back on, and you're going to share that on social media and your newsletter, wherever you've been sharing. So now you have here's the title of the book, here's the blurb, here's where you can pre-order, here's that first look, that first page, and here is the cover. So now you have extra stuff to show off. Cover reveals are a really big thing on social media. I would lean into that heavily. Even if you're not utilizing social media a ton, maybe you're just casually posting there for funsies, I would make a point to go ahead and try to do, even if it's a really basic cover reveal. And what I mean by basic is you could tell people on Monday, the cover for my book is coming Friday. Make sure you check my social media. Make sure you're following. It can be that simple. And then you remind them throughout the week, maybe, hey, by the way, my cover reveals tomorrow. Make sure that you come back at 9 a.m. And then on Friday, you release it. It can be that simple. You can do more fun things. And one thing I have done in the past is I have gotten other people involved. And this is one of my favorite ways to do a cover reveal, is to utilize other people. And usually I lean on my ARC team. So this could be one of those ways that you interact with your ARC team while they have the book. It's not release day yet. They're all reading. So it's out of your hands anyway. You can't do anything more with it because they're reading. But you could send a check-in email. How's it going? I hope reading's going well. If you're not going to be able to finish the book by release day, let me know. Life happens. I always tell people that it's not the end of the world if they don't finish it by release day. I'm still happy to see their review up when they do finish. By the way, the cover reveal is Friday. And this is where I would go into, I am looking for some people who would like to share my cover at 9:00 on Friday on their social media and tag me in it. Would anyone be willing to do that with me? And then they get to see, because they feel like they're included in something super special, because one, they got an ARC, which is really cool. If you've never been an ARC reader before, it's so fun. And two, now they're getting to see your cover before anybody else does. So you share your cover with your ARC team, you get a whole group of people with you, you're all gonna release it at 9 a.m. on Friday, and then that time comes, you announce it, your cover goes out, it goes out to their followers because they've also shared it on their accounts, and you can share that now, which is good for them because now you've shared their account on your account. You see what I'm saying? It's cross promotion. That is a really fun way to do a cover reveal. Keep that in mind. It is one of my favorite ways to get my content out there. Goodness, the sun just changed position outside, so the lighting got really weird in here, and now it's dark. So we did the cover reveal. Another thing you could do at this time, if you are super tech savvy, or if maybe you have a huge budget and this is something you could afford to hire out, but you could create a book trailer. I always do this. I include it on my YouTube channel here. You can go check out some of my book trailers. They're usually at the end of my videos where I talk about like I give bookish updates, and it usually says some kind of bookish update plus book trailer. I love to create a book trailer because it is something else to blast out online that is not just my cover. It is another way. Ultimately, it's all the same information, but it's done in a different medium. And I love that. So a book trailer, you can create this on Canva. There's a ton of stock images, stock video. You can keep it extremely basic. Don't think you have to like go and film your friends or something trying to act out scenes from the book. You could if you wanted to. That would be actually kind of a fun idea. Maybe I need to consider that. But a book trailer, don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. You can create a little book trailer, blast it out. It's just another way to get people really excited and something else people can share online to get other people excited for your book. And it's something I do, so it's on my bookish to-do list. After that, I do my uploads. In this document, there is an entire section of notes based on the things you need to know before you can upload your book to places like KDP, Ingram Spark. For instance, you do not have to have an ISBN for your ebook. You don't have to. You can use the ISBNs they give you. It's not something that's required to have an ISBN for an ebook. It is required for paperback and hardback though. So I am in the US. I get all of my ISBN numbers from Bowker. I will say ISBNs are kind of expensive, especially here in the US. They're cheaper if you buy them in bulk. So if you're like me, you're planning to publish for a very, very long time, it may be worth the money to spend a couple $100s to get a pack of 10, which is what I tend to do, especially if you're publishing super often, even maybe more than that. So ISBNs, I get them from Bowker. That is something you're going to write down, and you're going to want that in your book upload notes. So you're going to want to know things like the book title. Is this a series? Is there a series title? Because you may want to have a series title that's different than book one. You need to know that when you set up book one in your uploads. What's the number in the series? Is this book one? Publisher. Are you going to publish under your name and just have it say self-published? Or do you have an LLC and it's different and you want that to be listed as your publisher? That would be one thing you could do if you have an LLC. I am Amy Prokopis Publishing, so I always list Amy Prokopis Publishing there. Maybe you want to look like a traditional house and you have an entirely different name for your publishing house. That would be something that could be on the spine, a different little logo. It'll say your name and it'll be in your copyright and such. So think about that. Author name, of course. You're going to need to enter the ISBN depending on what version you're uploading at that time. So if you're doing an ebook, you can leave that blank. It'll associate one for you. If you're doing a paperback, you're going to want to put in the ISBN there. I will say I publish in two places. I publish in Amazon and I publish in Ingram Spark. I use Amazon's free ISBN on Amazon because that book is because it's only going to Amazon. That particular version's only on Amazon. I use the ISBN on Ingram Spark because that version gets distributed wide. It goes everywhere. And I do that because I don't want Amazon, because Amazon's going to prioritize their own product, of course. And so I don't want that version, if I use the ISBN there, to take over the ISBN somewhere else. This is something I don't feel like I'm describing super, super well. I may actually go in and research this a little bit and include like a thing somewhere. It's something I learned from Sarah Cannon. I just know there is a reason you want to be careful with your ISBN and the way that you upload when you're uploading in multiple places so that one does not cancel out the other. Future Amy here. I figured it out. I'm just going to pop something up here on the screen. The ISBN stuff has to do with expanded distribution. So if you're uploading, like me, to Ingram Spark and Amazon, when you upload to Amazon, you are not going to select expanded distribution. There's a place where there's a little checkbox. I believe it's on the pricing page, you're not going to check that box. You don't want it to be expanded distribution because that means it's going to take over, and Ingram Spark, they're not gonna talk very well. So you're going to do expanded distribution on Ingram Spark. That is your distributor that is going to get your book everywhere. On Amazon, your book's only going to be on Amazon. So this is for the paperback version. So the paperback on Amazon is going to have their ISBN. The paperback version on Ingram Spark that's going to get distributed everywhere is going to have the ISBN you get from Bowker. And that's the order they go in. You're also going to need keywords when you upload. So these keywords are things that are associated with your book, things like fantasy or super specific can also be hugely beneficial. So if you have a super niche book, writing a keyword phrase would be helpful. Like small town romance is one of those, or hockey romance, even more. It's not just a sports romance, it is a hockey romance. Those are keywords that you could put, and you're going to want to list them ideally in order of priority. So consider what you'd like to be filtered first and put them in order. You also need to know what categories to put your book in. I believe Amazon only allows you to put your book in 3 categories now. So fantasy is usually one I use, fantasy romance, that kind of stuff. New adult is a category you might consider. And there are, of course, subcategories within things like fantasy romance and such. So think about your categories, think really carefully about them, because if the broader you are, the more you're not competing, but the more books that your book is going to be lumped in with. So think about where it ideally fits. You want the category to fit your book. Don't just pick a category because you know it's one that's really interesting to people. Make sure your book fully fits there, because you're going to have your book targeted to the right people when you do. You also may, in the uploads, want to credit your artist. So maybe somebody drew the cover design for you. You could list that name there. You could also list your editor there as well, whoever edited your book. And then there's going to be the area of KDP and Ingram Spark where it's going to ask for your book dimensions. So know how big your book is. I do 5.5 by 8.5. You could do 6 by 9, list your dimensions, know the page count of your book. You can get that from your interior formatting information. What kind of paper are you going to print it on? I believe standard is usually cream paper, but I do have some of my past books that are printed on white paper. So decide however you would like what kind of paper to print that on. And then there's a place to list your blurb. I would include your tagline in that as well. Tagline, blurb, it's sometimes on KDP, I think they have it called description. It's the information about the product. So list the information there. There's oftentimes a place for your author bio. Write your author bio in there. And then it will take you to things like payment and pricing. How much do you want to list your book for? It will tell you the printing cost. So it will tell you how much it costs for that particular platform to produce your book. And it will also tell you how much you're going to make in royalty when you put in a price that your customers will pay. So think in pricing, think about what similar books in your genre are being priced as. Usually I do ebooks at about $5.99, especially as they first release. Sometimes I drop a year or so after. And all of my paperbacks that I've recently produced anyway have been $15.99. So think about what other people are charging. Some people also think about the length of the book. So a thicker book they may charge more for than like a shorter book. A lot of things to consider there and think about. But definitely don't price it higher. Don't price it like super higher than what other indie authors are pricing their books in similar genres for. Try to keep things kind of consistent, because you may turn people off from your books just because of the price point. After we've done uploads, we have everything ready to go. You're not going to publish your book from there. You're going to save it online for release day. So After you've done that, now we're really just marketing things. This is the point where I like to do a chapter 1 teaser. And what I usually do is I release the entire chapter 1 either on my website. I used to post it there. You can also upload a separate document to BookFunnel that is only chapter 1 if you would like people to go and click on it and find it in a different form. Or you could share chapter 1 out in your newsletter. And if chapter 1 is super short, you could take screenshots of it, like the Kindle version on your phone. You could take screenshots of the pages and share it to social media that way as well, if you don't have a super long chapter 1. But I like to share a sneak peek of chapter 1, because the hook of your entire book oftentimes is in chapter 1. It is what's going to hook people in. They're going to get excited. They're going to get a feel of the characters. And there's usually something in chapter 1 that keeps people reading. And if you can get somebody to read chapter 1 and get interested, they might be more likely, if they've been on the fence up until this point, they may be more likely to go ahead and either go over to that link you provide and pre-order, or since release day is around the corner, they may be more likely to purchase it on release day, and you may gain a sale from that. If I have a really large production cost, because like I have a fantasy book coming out soon, Trial of Flame and Wings, and I am expecting it to cost more for me to publish that book, you may want to do things like crowdfunding-esque, like Kickstarter, and help offset some of the production cost for you, and also provide some really cool items for your followers. So if you have a longer publication timeline, so let's say I am publishing this book, but I'm starting this publication to-do list a year out, you may have the time to run a Kickstarter at this point in the publication process. So your book's completely done, your cover's now done, you have all of the publishing stuff is done up to this point. Maybe you've had ARC readers, or at this point, maybe you didn't do ARC readers because you instead are going to do this Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter is going to be those early readers. That is something that you could do that I would be very interested in doing myself. And I'm sure I'm going to publish a video all about that. Kickstarter is basically crowdfunding. It's a way to provide something exclusive and special to people who are providing you funds towards producing that thing. So a lot of authors will do this for special editions, for instance. That is a huge thing on Kickstarter, is people doing special edition books, and to help produce it, they need these people to also fund it. And so they purchase really cool tiers, which give them exclusive things, like maybe they get a one-on-one video call with the author, or they get the exclusive edition that you're going to release, but this version is going to have foiling and sprayed edges and look really cool and totally different than the version that will be printed and sold in stores. There's a lot of really cool things you can do in a Kickstarter that would be exclusive and worth somebody funding your project for. So think about a Kickstarter at this point, especially if you have a long publication date, a very far out one, you could do this. And like I said a second ago, you could actually do this in lieu of ARC readers. And the people who purchase from your Kickstarter, if you are planning it out far enough in advance, you would have those copies of the books out to them early, ahead of release day, so that they can actually read the exclusive edition, that really fun Kickstarter piece, and then they could leave their review on release day when the book actually publishes, because you could release it early to Kickstarter first. So I know that sounds complicated. Kickstarter is a whole thing on its own, and I am sure I will do a video further into that. I did do a video detailing my first Kickstarter project, the one that funded. That was the Guardians of the Sixth Gate Omnibus. I released a special edition for my trilogy. That video is on this YouTube channel if you are interested in Kickstarter and want to see a little more about how that kind of stuff would work. So if you're not running a Kickstarter, you're going to skip that little checkbox on this to-do list, and you're going to go straight to ordering proof copies and making sure your book looks great. So the very first person who should ever get a copy of your physical book should be you, because you want to make sure that the cover looks good. There's nothing funky with it. You want to make sure the interior printed right. You want to proof it again just to be sure it's all there. You're going to do that next. And then after that, you are going to go to publication day and make sure to remind your ARC readers, it's publication day. Here's the link. Go post your review to Amazon and you're going to celebrate. So those are my bookish to-dos. That's my publishing to-do list. Now that I've done this a few times, depending on my goals with a particular book, I don't always do them in that exact order. For instance, a lot of times now for me, I have editing done and then I do cover design and then I do all things ARC readers. So it could be up to you. Some people release a finished ARC without the cover and that works for them. That's perfectly fine. It may also depend on when you're publishing, how far you are into the process, how much time you want to give an ARC reader also. Some people give an ARC reader 2 to 3 weeks, and some people give them an entire month. So it really just depends on where you are in the process. Some of these things can be done in a variety of order. So take a look at the list and consider that. Take my own process with a grain of salt, because things don't always, we don't all have the same methods, and that's perfectly fine. We don't all write books the same way. That's why there's such a thing as a pantser and a plotter and a planter, I think is what they call it. Yeah. So that's the publishing to do. Now you have to actually plan it out 1 year in advance, because what we have kind of glossed over and are now coming back to is that this is a 1 year publishing timeline. So at the beginning of 2025, we've already done this a little bit and talked about it. I'm going to publish a book. Here's the book. You have your to-do list now. Here's all the things I have to do. Now is when you're going to decide, to a degree, what order you're going to do those check boxes in. And now you're going to go month by month and you're going to decide when and what is going to happen. So in my document, I do actually give you some workbook pages for each month. There are pages for the entire year so that you can see the whole year on one page. You can take those check boxes and those items, you can take out which ones you're not using. So if you're not doing a Kickstarter, you can cross that out. You can take those items and you can plot them in on different months, and you can kind of decide how much work you're going to have to do and how quickly. So for me, I always give myself 6 months out from a publication date. So if I am taking this guide 1 year publication planner, it is January. 6 months from January is when I am planning my release if I've already written the book, because that's when I can start checking stuff off the list. Maybe you want to give yourself longer than that. Depends on how much time you need to finish, because again, this is just the publication process. This is not the writing process. So take into consideration what you can devote time to and sit down, take the planner that's in here and plot it out. And then that will have you an entire year planned out. So once I've planned all of these things out, I got all of my to-dos in order. I know what my budget is. I know where I'm putting my money. I know how I'm going to market, and I have some ideas of how I'm going to go about doing that. I have all of my metadata for uploading onto KDP and Ingram Spark and wherever else I'm uploading. I have it all plotted out by month, so I know my yearly timeline, when I'm publishing this book, and now I've taken my to-dos and put them by month. So now all I do from here is basically I take those to-do pages and I plop them in my actual planner at the very beginning of the month, and I review it every single month. That way I know that I'm on track. So if I don't get something checked off in 1 month, I know to move it to the next and adjust the entire thing so that I'm on track. Because if you don't keep up with it, there are some things that are time sensitive, especially when you're including other people like your editor and cover designer, and you don't want your publication timeline to get away from you and that book not be able to come out the time you had planned. So I hope this was helpful. I am so sorry for the lighting. It got really gray in here. I just was like hitting my mojo and I got really into discussing this because this particular guide is something I have worked really hard to put together for myself, not even to share. I've really worked to get it down to a science that works for me. And so I'm super excited that I feel good about where it is to share it with you guys. So again, you can get this by clicking the link below and purchase your own guide for $3 on Patreon, or you can get it for free along with my other indie author resources, extended edition, early sneak peeks, all kinds of stuff on there for $5 a month. So check it out. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this was really helpful. And yep, that's it. Like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Read books, be kind. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.